During 2024, a former mail carrier, age 78, residing in Detroit, experienced devastating loss of his residence. The culprit wasn't the bank, wasn't a fraudster, it was his county. Property tax arrears of $3,200 accumulated following his spouse's death. His county confiscated the residence, auctioned it off for $91,000, and retained every single dollar. Nothing went to him. The paperwork that could have prevented this entire nightmare was available at no charge on his county's official site. He remained completely unaware of its existence. This is our video's subject. When you're a homeowner above age 60, 5 critical papers stand as barriers protecting you from forfeiture of everything you've worked a lifetime to acquire. The majority require zero payment. The majority demand under 60 minutes. The reality that you're hearing about these for the very first time should infuriate you. I'll guide you step by step through each of these 5, clarify precisely what dangers each defends against, and reveal where to obtain them. However, initially, understanding is essential regarding why your mortgage-free residence makes you your neighborhood's prime vulnerability. This presentation serves educational objectives exclusively and doesn't constitute tax or financial guidance. Seek a why your paid-off home makes you a target. Qualified expert prior to making choices regarding your particular circumstances. Most seniors fail to grasp this reality. When that final mortgage installment clears, your residence vanishes from your lender's monitoring system. Zero financial institution oversight on the title. Zero company verifying whether anyone recorded claims against your real estate. You're celebrating freedom from debt, but reality dictates you've eliminated the singular protective surveillance on your ownership documents. Anyone possesses the ability to examine your county's publicly accessible files and discover your identity, your location, and mortgage status on the real estate. When no encumbrance appears, 2 conclusions emerge. You possess substantial equity, and zero oversight exists. This explains why con artists, debt collectors, and governmental entities pursue debt-free properties held by individuals exceeding 60 years. Let me begin with the paperwork protecting you from the danger most elderly homeowners haven't discovered yet. Document 1. The Homestead Declaration. The Homestead Declaration. A homestead declaration represents a single-sheet document you register with your county's recording department that triggers your state's statutory safeguards covering your main residence's value. After registration, statutory provisions shield a designated monetary portion of your residential equity from the majority of unsecured debt holders. Healthcare billing agencies, personal injury lawsuit verdicts, charge card corporations possessing judicial orders targeting you. They're barred from compelling your residence's liquidation for collection. That protected value becomes judicially immune. The safeguards differ dramatically between states. Florida and Texas provide unrestricted coverage. Your residence's worth might reach $2 million and debt collectors remain powerless to access a single cent. California shields between $361,000 and $722,000 based on your specific county. Massachusetts shields $1 million for property holders exceeding 62 years. Nevada shields $605,000. However, here's what's absolutely critical. In the majority of states, these safeguards don't engage without action. You must register the paperwork. Failing to register means you receive absolutely zero coverage, even when your state's provisions would have protected $500,000. Single page, notarized, registered with your county's recording department. No cost in the majority of states. 30 minutes. When affluent households purchase property, their legal counsel registers this prior to departing the settlement agency. It's standard procedure. For typical retirees, nobody ever acknowledges it. Document 2. Property Fraud Alert. Exists. 2 exceptions. It offers no defense against mortgage seizure and the IRS. I'll specifically examine the IRS shortly, because that's where the majority of retirees experience devastating surprises. Document number 2. The Property Fraud Alert. This particular one triggers genuine outrage when people discover it. Here's the actual mechanics of property fraud. A criminal accesses online resources and examines publicly available information for mortgage-free real estate. It requires roughly 30 seconds. They target elderly property holders, preferably individuals residing independently. Then, They create counterfeit ownership papers. They submit that fraudulent deed to the county's recording department and register it. And throughout the majority of American counties, paperwork gets registered immediately and authenticated. Never. The county processes it because no verification protocols challenge it. After that counterfeit deed achieves official status, the criminal either secures a private hard money advance using your real estate or attempts outright liquidation. When you discover what happened, they've already extracted loans from your value or conveyed your ownership to an unknown party, and now you're investing $5,000, $10,000, sometimes $40,000 on attorney expenses, demonstrating that you remain your property's legitimate holder. In Clark County, a former educator experienced this identical situation. Someone counterfeited ownership papers, submitted them, and the county processed it. When she finally established she remained her home's owner, she'd spent $4,000 on attorney expenses. The monitoring service that would have detected it within 24 hours remained free the whole time. The majority of counties currently provide complimentary property fraud monitoring. Visit your county's official site, locate property fraud monitoring, input your identity and real estate details, and you're finished. 5 minutes, absolutely free. From that moment forward, you receive electronic notification within 24 hours. Document 3. Enhanced Title Insurance. Whenever anyone registers anything targeting your real estate, a deed, an encumbrance, a conveyance, anything, your county understands you possess your residence. They've never once informed you this service exists. Complete enrollment today. 5 minutes, $0. Document number 3, Enhanced Title Insurance. When you acquired your residence, the settlement firm provided you a basic title coverage contract at completion. The majority of property holders executed whatever documents appeared before them, not realizing that alternative choices were available. A basic title coverage contract exclusively examines history. It addresses flaws that existed prior to your acquisition, counterfeiting that occurred before completion, concealed encumbrances from a prior holder, title mistakes that predated your transaction. That's everything. If someone counterfeits ownership papers on your real estate next year, or 5 years forward, or 20 years forward, your basic title coverage doesn't address it. You're entirely without protection. An enhanced owner's title contract examines the future. It addresses counterfeiting of paperwork following your completion date. Identity theft conveyances, fraudulent ownership transfers that occur in future years, and in the majority of situations it addresses the attorney expenses to contest it, which can easily reach $20,000 to $40,000 or beyond. This particular one isn't complimentary. It requires payment to enhance. But here's the inquiry you should present your settlement firm this week. Contact them and speak these precise words. Is my existing contract basic or enhanced? If it's basic, what's an enhancement's cost? 1 telephone inquiry, 5 minutes. And if the response prevents you from spending $40,000 on attorney expenses. The IRS, what nobody else tells you. In future years, that represented the most valuable telephone inquiry you've ever placed. Now, I must pause here and address the subject that the majority of individuals creating presentations about residential safeguards conveniently omit: the IRS. If you're indebted to the IRS, a federal taxation encumbrance supersedes nearly everything I've discussed to this point. The Homestead Declaration offers no defense from the IRS. Your title coverage offers no defense from the IRS. A federal taxation encumbrance is a statutory claim the federal government attaches against everything you possess, including your residence, when you're indebted for taxes and fail to remit after receiving a demand. For seniors, this occurs more frequently than you'd expect. You execute a Roth conversion and neglect to reserve funds for the taxation demand. You receive a single Social Security retroactive distribution that elevates you into a superior category. You overlook an estimated quarterly remittance because you didn't understand your pension and Social Security collectively made you responsible for estimated taxation obligations. The IRS transmits a notification. You fail to examine the correspondence because it appears like promotional material. 6 months subsequently, there's an encumbrance on your residence. In 2025, the IRS executed over 760,000 levies. That encompasses banking accounts, earnings and Social Security distributions, and federal taxation encumbrances were registered on hundreds of thousands of real estate holdings. Retirees on restricted earnings are impacted most severely because they frequently lack the monetary resources to satisfy an unanticipated taxation demand rapidly, and the financial penalties and accruing charges compound rapidly. Here's your necessary action. Examine every individual correspondence from the IRS. Everyone, if you're indebted, establish an installment arrangement without delay. The IRS maintains an internet-based resource where you can establish a remittance schedule independently, without even telephoning them. After you're enrolled in a remittance schedule, the IRS is obligated to cease escalating recovery procedures as long as you're fulfilling your remittances. If you currently possess a federal taxation encumbrance on your real estate, consult a taxation expert. Document 4. Revocable Living Trust. Regarding getting it withdrawn or subordinated, there are official procedures for both. The underlying foundation beneath every additional document in this presentation is maintaining current status on your taxation obligations. If the IRS pursues your residence, nothing else is relevant. No homestead declaration, no fraud monitoring, no title coverage will prevent them. Maintain current status. Examine your correspondence. That's the foundation. Document number 4, the Revocable Living Trust. This particular one accomplishes two objectives that function in conjunction. First, it makes your real estate more difficult for criminals to locate and pursue. Second, it maintains your residence outside of estate proceedings when you pass away. When your residence is registered in your individual identity, anyone can examine publicly accessible information and locate it. Criminals do this continuously. They examine for elderly property holders with mortgage-free real estate, and your identity appears immediately. When your residence is contained within a revocable living trust, your individual identity doesn't display as the immediate holder. The trust identity displays alternatively. You remain the residence's owner. You remain residing in it. You remain controlling everything. Nothing transforms in your everyday existence. But when a criminal executes a rapid, publicly accessible information examination for vulnerable targets, your identity doesn't display. They proceed to someone else. The secondary advantage activates following your passing. Without a trust, your residence undergoes estate proceedings. That's a publicly accessible judicial procedure that requires 3 to 5% of your estate's total worth. On a $500,000 residence, that's up to $25,000. With a trust, the conveyance is confidential, instant, and circumvents estate proceedings completely. Cost to establish is $1,000 to $3,000. The calculation is transparent. One caution: a revocable living trust doesn't shield your holdings from debt collectors throughout your existence. That's what the homestead declaration accomplishes. You require both, and if you currently possess a trust, verify your residence is genuinely registered in the trust's CAUSH, Document 5, Senior Property Tax Exemption. Identity. I've witnessed this repeatedly. A retiree compensates an attorney, places the paperwork in storage, and never transfers the ownership. The trust exclusively functions if the real estate is within it. One additional matter: many states maintain their individual inheritance taxation with significantly reduced thresholds than the federal allowance. Pennsylvania demands 4.5% commencing at $1, no allowance. Everything you bequeath gets taxed. A correctly constructed trust can decrease or eliminate that state-level demand. Document number 5, the property tax exemption for seniors. This represents the paperwork that the individual in Detroit remained ignorant about, and it's the one that could have preserved his residence. Nearly every state in America provides a property taxation decrease for property holders over 60 or 65. In Texas, the over 65 allowance decreases your assessable worth by up to $200,000 and freezes your educational district taxation obligations permanently. Florida freezes your complete property taxation evaluation. Georgia exempts educational taxation entirely for property holders exceeding 62 years. New York expanded its senior allowance in 2026 to decrease evaluated worth by up to 65%. These allowances aren't self-executing. You must submit applications. In many states, the cutoff for 2026 is April 30th. That's weeks away. If you've been remitting complete property taxation since you reached 65 and never submitted applications, you've been excessively paying every individual year. Contact your county evaluation office this week. Inquire what senior allowances you're eligible for and what the cutoff is. That single inquiry could preserve you thousands annually for the remainder of your 5-document checklist, your existence. And here's the relationship. When your property taxation demand is reduced, you're significantly less probable to experience arrears. That former mail carrier in Detroit didn't forfeit his residence because he was negligent. He forfeited it because his spouse died. His earnings decreased, and a $3,000 taxation demand became insurmountable on a restricted earnings. If he had registered for the senior allowance years previously, that financial shortfall might never have occurred. The Supreme Court determined in 2023 that counties are prohibited from retaining excess value from taxation liquidations. But that determination exclusively helps following the destruction is completed. The 5 documents I just provided you prevent the destruction before it commences. Let me consolidate it all comprehensively. Here is your checklist. 1. Register a homestead declaration at your county's recording department. Shields your value from unsecured debt holders. Free in most states, 30 minutes. 2. Enroll for property fraud monitoring on your county's official site. Alerts you within 24 hours if anyone registers anything targeting your real estate. Free 5 minutes. 3. Contact your settlement firm and inquire if your contract is basic or enhanced. If it's basic, inquire about enhancement. 1 telephone inquiry. 4. Establish a revocable living trust and verify your residence is registered in the trust's identity. Circumvents estate proceedings, adds confidentiality, shields your beneficiaries, $1,000 to $3,000. 5. Submit applications for your state's senior property taxation allowance before the cutoff. Decreases your yearly taxation demand permanently. 1 telephone inquiry to your county evaluation office, 5 documents, 1 afternoon. Every individual one of them exists right now. None of them are confidential. The exclusive reason you don't possess them is that nobody in your existence had any monetary motivation to inform you about them. Your property agent got compensated when you acquired the residence. Your bank got compensated when you secured the mortgage. Your county gets compensated when you remit your taxation obligations. Nobody gets compensated when you protect yourself. That's why it's on you. All right, that's it. Subscribe USA Senior Hub for more.